everyone. So let's get started. We want to thank you for being here tonight and spending your evening with us. As most of you know, we are Light the Way, and tonight we'll be discussing the how-tos of writing and releasing a press release. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to add your questions in the chat, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. We'll also be recording this, so if you miss anything, don't worry about it. You'll have a chance to go back, and there'll also be a handout available at the end. There's at the bottom of the screen, there's the ability to turn on the closed captions. So if that's easier for you, please go ahead and do so. And then you can always reach out to us. We'll share our email at the end, and we are happy to help answer any questions if you think of it afterwards. So again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Shayna, and I'm one of the co-founders of Light the Way, Missing Persons Advocacy Project. I apologize, I'm a little bit under the weather, so please excuse my voice. I want to tell you a little bit about our organization. I know I can see a lot of familiar faces, but for those of you who don't know, I kind of just want to fill you in on who we are and what we do. So we are a victim-centered volunteer organization dedicated to reuniting missing persons with their loved ones and fostering positive relationships between families and law enforcement, and advocating tirelessly for victims and their families. And we were founded in 2022, but Tate, the other co-founder, and I met in 2021. We first met when Gabby Petito was missing, and that's what kind of brought us out into the missing community. And then later on, what kind of solidified that we wanted to be advocates is that we heard of a little girl in Washington named Oakley Carlson who was missing, and her biological parents were suspects in her disappearance, and her foster parents were the ones who were advocating for her. And the sad part about Oakley's story is that she was discovered to be missing in December of 2021. However, the last known sighting of her was 10 months prior in February of 2021. So there was some makeup time that law enforcement needed to do in finding what happened to Oakley. And sadly, she hasn't been located yet. But that is what brought Tate's and I out into the advocate community, and what made us create Light the Way. We started working with her foster family pretty early on, Jamie Jo and Eric Kiles, who have become great friends of ours, and they have taught us so much about working with families. And we learned just about everything that has to do when you advocate and when you advocate for a case. So we say that Oakley is the heart of Light of the Way, and she truly brings us the other cases that we work with. Our second case was kind of the opposite end of what Oakley's case was. Oakley was a newer case that was a missing child. And then in Oakley's group, there was the daughter of Patricia Otto, and she had been missing for 47 years. So it was truly an unresolved, and we don't like to use the term cold case, we like unresolved case. But it truly was an older case, very different than Oakley's. And Suzanne reached out to us and said, hey, I could use some help. So we kind of learned the other end of what it was like to work on a case that had been around for a long time and needed some assistance in getting the word out there and what type of awareness you could bring to an unresolved case like that. And since that summer of 2022, we have started to work with over 20 different families from West Coast to East Coast and all in between. The families are what is super important to us. Our relationship with them is what is the most important thing that we do. We are truly victim-centered. We tell their stories. It's their narratives that we put out into the public. And we want to make sure that the families are always at the forefront and those victims. We had a very exciting thing happen to us later on. We were able to connect with Julie Murray, the sister of Maura Murray, who has been missing since 2004. Julie had been someone that we had always looked up to in the missing community. And we have had the absolute privilege to work with Julie in her Engage with Empathy campaign and for advocating with Maura. And so we are just blessed to work with all of our families and help with some other great advocacy projects within some different states. So that's a little bit about who we are at Light the Way. And I want to have everybody introduce themselves that will be speaking tonight. But I wanted to take a moment on behalf of Tates and I and thank our two new volunteers, Haley Gray and Raul Montero. For the first time in 2 years, Tates and I have been able to open our doors and start working with some volunteers that share the same dedication and beliefs about victims and their families. And we are truly honored that both Haley and Raul have chosen to commit their time to light the way and the families that we work with. They both come with a list of accomplishments and even more skills that we've been trying to incorporate with the work that we do every day with our families. And we cannot thank Haley and Raul enough. And we're really excited to see where Light the Way grows in the next couple of years. So I'd like to just introduce my co-founder, Tates, who I couldn't do this without. So go ahead, Tates.
Thank you, Shana, for that introduction. I'm Tates, and I'm the other co-founder of Light the Way. I share Shana's deep commitment to reuniting missing persons with their loved ones, advocating for victims of unresolved cases, and fostering positive relationships between families and law enforcement. I too want to thank our new volunteers, Haley and Raul. Their skills and accomplishments perfectly enhance the work we do every day, and we're honestly so grateful for their commitment to our cause. Now I'd like to introduce one of those volunteers, Raul Montero. Raul is a dedicated volunteer with a passion for justice and compassion for those affected by tragedy. His contributions extend beyond mere awareness. He has pioneered an open source database that has catalyzed progress in numerous cases, driving impactful movement towards answers and healing. Raul, I would love for you to tell everyone a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Thank you, Tates and Shana. Volunteering with Light the Way is truly an honor for me. I'm Raul. I research missing, murdered, and unidentified persons unresolved cases. I also advocate for families by bringing awareness to their loved ones and working with various agencies and organizations to assist in resolving those cases. I have created many open source databases that have driven movement in several cases. I'm currently completing a map of all the unidentified persons in the United States and among other resources. And I continue to look forward to doing even more with Light the Way. It's my honor now, though, to introduce someone who continues to make an indelible mark in our community. She uses her many skill sets and experience to enhance her effectiveness and to impact families in positive and ethical ways. Everyone, Haley Gray.
Oh, Raul, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Shana and Tates, thank you so much for letting me be here and also letting me be a volunteer. It's so amazing to work with you. And then also, Raul, um, you're all just making such a huge difference in the community. And so I appreciate you all. First and foremost, I am Haley Gray. I am a proud volunteer of Light the Way. I really love our partnership. I've learned so much about advocacy and helping families. For the past 8+ years, I've been a researcher and writer for podcasts. My passion is unresolved cases and working with families. And through working with Light the Way and Raul, I've learned so much about how I can further assist families. And so that means a lot to me. Um, in addition to that work, I'm also the co-founder of True Crime Podcast Training, where we have 100% online training courses to help people learn how to research for true crime podcasts. I say it the right way, but I don't know if there is a right way, but I think we do it well. And then I'm also a secretary for the Bride Again Foundation, which was started by Kirsten Bride Again after her husband was murdered. So I love helping with that as well. Thank you again for letting me be here.
Thank you, everyone, for those introductions. Now we're going to talk for a few minutes about what a press release is. A press release is a concise written communication sent to members of the media to announce news or events related to a particular organization, individual, or cause. It typically follows a specific format, and it includes key information like who, what, when, why, how of the news being announced. Press releases are an essential tool for gaining media coverage and informing the public about important developments. Haley is now going to tell you how a press release can help a loved one's case.
Yeah, so press releases serve as a powerful tool in raising awareness about unsolved murders or missing person cases. And by crafting a well-written press release and distributing it to relevant media outlets, you can attract attention to your loved one's case and potentially reach a broader audience. And Raul's going to help me out with the rest there.
Media coverage generated by a press release can lead to increased public awareness, which may result in new leads, tips, or information from individuals who have relevant knowledge or may have seen something related to the case. Additionally, media attention can put pressure on law enforcement agencies to devote more resources or attention to solving the case. Overall, a strategically crafted press release has the potential to keep the case in the public eye, spark community involvement, and ultimately contribute to efforts to find answers and seek justice for your loved one. Now let's talk about how to write a press release.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everyone. So what we're going to do is on the left-hand side of the screen, I'm going to show you a template that we've put together for how to write a press release. And then on the right-hand side, we have a real-life example of a press release that's been written. Now, this whole document we're going to be sending out at the end. So you'll get a copy of the template, you'll see the example and everything like that. And I just want to say, first of all, that this real life example is about the case of Bianca Carrasco. And that's a case that I try to help bring attention to. And I know that we have some other people here tonight who also help bring attention. I just want to say thank you so much to Bianca's advocacy team for letting me use this press release so that everyone can see a real life example. So first of all, when you're writing a press release, the very first thing that's going to be up there is this bolded line that says for immediate release. Unless you're going to do an embargoed press release, which Julie Murray taught me about. Well, she really taught me everything I know about this, or the basics. So thank you, Julie. So if you're going to be releasing your press release immediately, like when you send it out and you want the press to start talking about it, then you're going to put for immediate release. At the bottom of this document, we talk about embargoes. So if you have any questions about that, please let us know, but it's at the bottom and we go into more detail just in the document. Since we only have an hour, we can't touch on everything, but for the most part, you're going to have this for immediate release. And then underneath it, you're going to have a headline. And the headline should not only be short and attention grabbing, but it should also be very clear about the main subject of the press release. Make sure it communicates the most important information. And that basically, the headline should summarize exactly what you want the reporter to know about your press release when they're looking at it. So it's like, again, it's an attention grabber. It's the first thing they're going to see. So you want to make it as attention grabbing as possible. So then over here on Bianca's example, we have her headline right here, and it says community gratitude, Crime Stoppers joins efforts to find Bianca Carrasco. So that just summarizes what this is about. We're excited. We're grateful for the community, and we're grateful for Crime Stoppers who has joined the effort to find Bianca Carrasco. Next, you have city and state, and this is where the event or whatever you're sending the press release out about, that's where that's going to go. So when we released this press release, we said Odessa, Texas, and that's because, as we'll get into this, you'll see, but it was the Odessa Crime Stoppers that helped with this. Now, Bianca went missing from San Antonio, but in this specific example where they were talking about the Odessa Crime Stoppers. So that's why we put Odessa, Texas. And then the next thing is your date, and that's just the date that you're releasing it. And then your next paragraph is, or the first paragraph should contain the 5 W's and 1 H. So that is, and Tate's kind of talked about this earlier, but that's the who, what, where, when, why, and how. And basically that's just, we've all heard of that before. And that's just, basically what you want to put in your press release, just those items. So the why and the how can be reserved for later paragraphs if more appropriate. And it's important to put the most crucial information up front because many readers may not continue reading beyond the first few paragraphs. I wouldn't worry if, I know this can seem a little bit overwhelming. I wouldn't worry too much about like, oh my gosh, am I putting the why and the how in the wrong section? Like, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just make sure that your first paragraph is a summary of the most critical information. Similar to the headline, this is the first full-on paragraph that people are going to be reading. So you want to make sure that it has your crucial information. So with Bianca's example, we have here the family and friends of Bianca Carrasco, who has been missing since May 1st, 2016, wish to express their heartfelt gratitude as Odessa Crime Stoppers steps in to intensify the search for Bianca. In a significant development, Odessa Crime Stoppers, in a joint effort with Crime Stoppers of San Antonio, will be placing billboards in San Antonio and Odessa, Texas, alongside offering a reward for $1,000 for any information that leads to finding her. So again, that's just a summary of basically what this whole press release is about. And we're capturing the main details that we want the press to know about, which is that Crime Stoppers is stepping in and we have some billboards. The second paragraph should expand on the general details provided in the first paragraph. And if you didn't include any of the 5 W's and 1 H, then you should go ahead and include those in the second paragraph. And then in addition, it should effectively provide the general background of the event in question and act as a foundation for the rest of the article. So in this second paragraph here, we kind of expand on the fact that Bianca went missing on May 1st, 2016. So we just give some background information. Bianca Carrasco was last seen by her husband at their residence in the 16,000 block of Walnut Creek Drive in San Antonio, Texas. Her mysterious disappearance has left a void in the hearts of those who know and love her. She had strong ties to both San Antonio and Odessa, Texas, having lived in Odessa until 2013, where her family and friends continue to reside. So again, we're just continuing on from the first paragraph, providing a little bit more information that now, when we get to the third paragraph here, it says, if applicable, the next paragraph should include a paragraph or a summary of the agency or organization that is involved in the event being discussed in the press release. So here we discuss Odessa Crime Stoppers, who is known for its unwavering commitment to community safety, has decided to lend its support to the ongoing search for Bianca. This support includes the placement of billboards in San Antonio and Odessa, which will prominently display Bianca's photo and the reward information. So as you can tell, we're basically just building on top of that first paragraph. So that's why I said, I don't think it's super important to be like, okay, I got to get all the 5 W's and the 1 H, and it has to be in this perfect order. I don't think that's super important. We have all of the information here in these 3 paragraphs. And then the next paragraph or paragraphs should include any quotes that you want to be used in the article, should one be written. Ensure quotes are relevant, interesting, and add value to the press release. It's often beneficial to have quotes from key figures, such as family members or event organizers. So one thing that I learned from Julie Murray is that you want to have these quotes bolded so that they stick out to the reporter. It's also important to have the quotes in there because a lot of the time, reporters will write an article based solely off the press release. For example, this press release that we're going over right now, articles were written off this press release and no one ever contacted Bianca's friend or just her advocacy team. They never contacted them. So these quotes were important because they were included in the story. And I don't know how else to, I don't want this to sound rude, but basically with this press release, if you give them these quotes, you're basically like doing the reporter's job for them, and it makes it easier for them. And maybe they're more willing to do the article because it's all ready for them. So that's why these quotes are important. It's super important to have a quote from someone who is connected to the case. So a family member, an advocate. If possible, you can also reach out to the police department. if you have a good relationship with them, you can reach out and ask them for a statement, a comment. You could even ask them to be part of the press release or the event that you're telling the media about. It doesn't have to just be from the family. It could be a joint effort. So these quotes, like I said, are super important. And the way that they're usually worded in the press release is it starts with like 1 or 2 lines of the quote, and then there's a comma, and it says, said Julie Stinson, friend spokesperson for Bianca Carrasco. And then it continues on with the quote. I'm not sure that the wording really matters. I think you could say, you know, Julie Stinson, friend spokesperson for Bianca Carrasco says, and then include the quote. But definitely make sure you say who the quote is from and who that person is. So down here we say, said Giovanna Burney, sister of Bianca Carrasco, just so that everyone knows who said it. And then the last paragraph should contain any additional details that you haven't mentioned previously. So on this one, we just kind of say, the billboards will serve as a constant reminder to the public of Bianca's disappearance and the reward being offered for information that could break this case wide open. Every detail, no matter how seemingly insignificant, could be key to solving this mystery. And then also there is another paragraph here where we discuss if you have any information related to Bianca's whereabouts or the circumstances of her disappearance, we urge you to contact the Odessa Crime Stoppers anonymous tip line. Your tip could be instrumental in bringing Bianca home and providing answers to her family and loved ones. And then it continues, Bianca's story has touched the hearts of countless individuals in both San Antonio and Odessa. Together with Crime Stoppers, we can make a difference and help bring her back to her family and friends. I think including the tip information is super important because, again, if you send this out and the reporter only takes the information from this press release and does not reach out, you want them to have as much information as possible. And the hope is that this article will reach someone who has information and they need to know who to contact. And then your next little section is just going to be for media inquiries. And this is going to be people that the media can reach out to. So in this case, Bianca's advocacy team has an email that they share. And then in addition to that, we have Giovanna, and then normally her phone number would be there, but I removed it for privacy. And then we have Julie, friend spokesperson, and then you would insert the number there. If you're on an advocacy, let me start over. If you're working on a case and you don't have a shared email address, that's absolutely okay. You can put any email there. And then your last couple sections are just going to be about sections. And so the first one is going to be about Bianca because she is the reason for this press release. And so this is just a very short 4 to 5 sentence summary of her about Bianca and her disappearance. This could come from the flyer. I've written multiple press releases about Bianca, so I actually keep this little section saved. And then whenever I write a press release about Bianca, I just paste this in because this section is always in her press releases. And then below, we also talk about who Crime Stoppers is. And then I just copy and paste this from their website. I'm not going to come up with a description for them. And if you mention any other organizations in the press release, and you're going to want to talk about who they are at the bottom as well. And again, that's just because you're providing as much information as possible to the reporter. And then we also have another example of a press release, which you'll be able to view in the handout. And this is courtesy of Search and Support San Antonio. I want to give a huge thank you to Nina. She helped me make sure that I have all of the little tips and tricks going on in here. But you can see in Nina's press release here that hers is formatted a little bit differently, and you can definitely do this as well. She has her logo up here and then contact information, But she also includes pictures, which is also very helpful for reporters, because then they can just pull these photos, and she has a description down here of where this information came from. And then again, she has, about section here. So there's multiple ways to do press releases. I don't think there is really a wrong way to do it. But this is also really eye-catching. And so that's a way to do it as well. But there's an example down here for you in the handout that we're going to send. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now. So one thing that we also wanted to talk about was ChatGPT. That is an artificial intelligence application. It is really, really good at writing press releases. So if you feel like you don't have I feel like I'm not great at writing professionally. I don't have a lot of experience in that. And so I love using ChatGPT to help me write press releases. We don't have enough time to go over how to use ChatGPT, but I did film a tutorial video, which is going to be included in the handout. And I show you how to write press releases using ChatGPT, and it's GP as in like potential. I wish I knew all the little, I should learn those, like alpha words, but anyway. So we're going to be sending out a video on that at the end. And if you need any additional help with ChatGPT, you can always reach out to me. My email is haley.lighttheway@gmail.com, and I'm going to go ahead and stick that in the chat. If you have any questions about ChatGPT, I am happy to help. So now that we have the press release ready to go, how exactly do we send out a press release? Well, the first thing you want to do is identify your target audience. You want to determine which media outlets are most likely to be interested in your story. So this could include local newspapers, TV stations, radio stations, online news websites, and relevant blogs or forums. And one thing that I learned is that if you're trying to reach people who speak a language other than English, you can have your press release translated to that language. And Google Translate is a free service that can help you with this. And then you can send that translated press release to reporters who work for media outlets that report in that language. For example, in San Antonio, a lot of people there speak Spanish, and one of the biggest media outlets is Telemundo. And so if you can get them to do a story in Spanish, then you're reaching a whole other demographic. And Nina is the one that gave me that tip, and she just said in the chat, ChatGPT also translates beautifully. So ChatGPT is great. You can get, and I talk about this in the video, but ChatGPT 3.5 is a free version, so anyone can use it. And then after you've identified your target audience, the next thing you want to do is compile a media list. This is a list of contact information for journalists, editors, and other media professionals at the outlets you've identified. You can make sure to include their names, email addresses, and any other relevant information. I usually put together a spreadsheet. And the way that you can look up these media contacts, if you don't already have them, is I usually just Google like San Antonio, Texas media contacts. And then there's usually a website that you can find email addresses. And a lot of the times if they're a big enough media outlet, they will list who the person is working for. So if they're working for like the sports section, I'm probably not going to include them. But if they work for like the crime reporting section, I definitely want to include them. So that's part of identifying your target audience. And then just a tip, if you've worked with a reporter in the past, or if a specific reporter has written a story about your loved one or the case that you're advocating for, definitely reach out to them. they're already familiar with the case, so they're more likely to do the story. So I am going to stop speaking and I will pass it over to Raul.
So now we're going to talk about distributing your press release. So there are several ways to distribute that. One is email. Send your press release directly to journalists and media outlets using a media list that you've compiled. There's also press release distribution services. Consider using online distribution services that can send your press release to a wider audience, journalists, bloggers, and news organizations. Some popular distribution services include PR Newswire, Business Wire, and PR Web. Another outlet is social media. Share your press release on your organization's social media channels to reach a broader audience and encourage followers to share it with their networks. You can always tag news outlets, journalists, etc. in your post. Here's a tip. Send out your press release on a Wednesday if possible. That's the day when everyone is in the newsroom looking for stories to cover, so they'll be hungry. Another option is to send out the press release 3 times. 1, well ahead of the event so that the reporter can put it on their calendar. 2, a day before the event, just as a reminder. And then 3, the morning of, but before 9 a.m. Tates, you're going to follow up.
Yes, thank you. Now we're going to talk about what happens after you send out your press release. After sending out your press release, you're going to want to follow up with journalists and media outlets to confirm the receipt and gauge interest in covering your story. Be sure to be prepared, to provide additional information or schedule interviews if requested. You're also going to want to monitor coverage, keep track of any media coverage generated by your press release, including articles, news segments, and online mentions. This will help you evaluate the impact of your outreach efforts and identify any opportunities for further engagement with the media. A tip that we use to keep track of any type of news segments or press releases on people that we're trying to keep up with is to create a Google alert. And the easiest way to describe how to do that is just type in Google Alerts into your search bar and go from there. It's really easy peasy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Google Alerts, and they're really great because you can pick how often you want to get the alert. So do you want to get it the second an article comes out, or do you want to get all of your alerts at one time? So it's super helpful, and I really like Google Alerts a lot. So now I want to talk about some tips that I've learned along the way through Julie Murray and Nina Brooks and other people I've talked to. So thank you so much to them. I would be nowhere without the people who have taught me things. So some tips for press releases. You want to use a clear font like Arial or Times New Roman, and then usually at a size 11 or 12. I know on Google Docs, the default is Arial size 11, so that's what I usually go with, but 11 or 12 are pretty customary. Another thing you can do is include links or visual elements. Like I showed you with the search and support press release, they included pictures in there. Another thing you can do is just include links throughout. Another thing we suggest is that you proofread for grammar and spelling errors. One thing you can do is use ChatGPT for that. You can just go there and say, can you check this for grammar and spelling errors, and then paste in your press release, make sure everything's good. I know Google Docs also has, grammar and spell check, Microsoft Word. So there's a lot of different ways. And then let me pull up my list here and go over some other tips that we have. So let me just look here. I want to go back to the embargo that we talked about a little bit earlier. So sometimes press releases require an embargo, which means you're giving reporters a heads up or a warning of some impending info or news. And you can set the embargo for a particular date and time, and reporters will understand that the news should not be released until that time that you specifically say. So at the very top, when we talked about where it says for immediate release, instead of doing that, you should say embargoed until, and then insert your date and time, including the time zone. And this is all in the handout that we're going to be sending. And then you can add that in red so that it really sticks out. And any reporter with good standing will honor this embargo and not release it prematurely. And this is something that I would definitely include if you're going to be sending your press release out early, like Raul talked about. If you're going to be sending it, way in advance to warn the reporters of this event, but you don't want if you don't want everyone to know about it, then definitely include that embargoed little segment at the top. And then for major news or like case breaks where there's going to be an anticipation of multiple news outlets or reporters requesting interviews, it can be helpful to set up a specific date, time, location. That way the family is available for interviews. Everyone knows, okay, at this time we're going to be talking to the media. This helps protect the families from having to do multiple interviews all day long. And if you want to do this, then you can add the information under that for media inquiries, please contact section. Definitely you can do that, you can protect yourself from all the, it's really draining to have to speak to the media over and over again. So if you can add in that little section, then you can help, help with that. If you have any other tips and tricks, please feel free to put them in the chat. I know that there's probably more out there, but those are just some ones that we think are really helpful. And I wanted to talk about this earlier, but the main reason why we want to do this webinar is because we want to empower you all to send out press releases. This is not something that the police have to do. This is something that anyone can do. And if you feel like you want more media attention on your loved one's case, you can take that power into your own hands and send out these press releases. You don't have to wait for anyone. And this is an easy, free way that you can do that. And so we just want to empower you to do that.
Haley, thank you so much. So one of the things that Haley is doing at Light the Way is she is connecting our families with podcasts, and she's also helping to write press releases, which is just such a help to Tates and I, because she has gotten so experienced in doing these over the last couple of years. So we're so grateful for her experience and for her commitment. But Haley's right. This really is an opportunity to families to take this in their own hands. And we are here to help support in any way we can. If you have questions about this, and even with our own families too, we want to help support you by helping you write these, so that if you feel like there's something that should be out there, that we can put that out there and release it to the news media. I know that in many of the cases, you do start to connect with certain reporters who become part of your team, really, people who you feel comfortable with. And that's where to start when you have these press releases. And when you get more comfortable, your media list starts to grow. So thank you so much, Haley, for really organizing. And thank you to Tates and Raul for also picking up the pace tonight and explaining all of our how-tos about press releases. I love the love for ChatGPT. I'm going to be honest. Haley introduced Tates and I to ChatGPT. We were kind of afraid of it beforehand, but it's the best thesaurus there has ever been. I probably use that 100 times a day to find a better sounding word. So take advantage of that. It's really a wonderful tool. And don't be afraid to try things out. And, then you just tell it, no, I don't like that. And it'll write you something different. But it's a great tool. And I'm seeing if you have any questions, please write them in the chat. If you don't have any questions right now, we understand sometimes it's a lot of information at once. You can always email us. We'll be sending out the template that Haley went over, as well as the video for the chat, how to choose ChatGPT, and kind of a template for what we went over tonight. And I see a comment. Yeah. Law enforcement does not have to initiate the press release. You absolutely can do that on your own. They don't have to make a statement in it. It can be a statement just from the families. We often have seen that from some families who don't have the best relationship with law enforcement. And sometimes that can be a push for law enforcement to make a statement because the family is out there saying something and they're not. And sometimes that might push law enforcement to make a statement publicly. Not always, but it might be something that you want to try. So give it a shot. We also suggest, some times to try press releases might be around a birthday or what we call an angel date, when somebody's, homicide date is, or a missing date is. You could try writing a press release around those dates. We find that the media that we have our best relationship with has told us, those are the dates that we're for sure interested in picking up something. So those are some days to try. If there hasn't been any information that's come out at all recently, then go, you can just go for it and say, hey, the family is ready to bring some attention to this case. And it's been, 2 or 3 years since we've gotten anything. And hopefully somebody will be able to pick that up. So if there aren't any questions, we want to let you know that Haley's going to send out the template, the ChatGPT video. The recording will be available on the Light the Way website sometime in the future. We'll also put it in our socials that it's available. We encourage you to share it with friends or check it out if you need it. We want to kind of do a couple of webinars in the near future to kind of educate and help families and advocates. So if there's ever anything that you're interested in learning about, please reach out to us and we'll see if we can come up with some sort of idea. Our email is info@lightthewaymissing.com. So please reach out anytime. Like we said, we are really victim-centered advocates, and we want to be able to support the families and the advocates who work with them. So if you're an advocate here to do work for families and that's what's in your heart, we want to help you too. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out, because there are a lot of cases and there are a lot of families, and we want to make sure that everyone's well supported.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to mention that I did send the template and the chats. It's a Google Doc, and it includes everything that we've discussed tonight. It includes, in addition to the template and the link to the ChatGPT video. If I was just going to say that on June, oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on the date here, but not this Thursday, but the next Thursday, I am doing a tutorial on ChatGPT just in general, not on how to write press releases. So if you want to learn more about that, you can definitely check that out. And I talk about one way that I love using ChatGPT is to have it write emails for me when I reach out to law enforcement. And I feel like that's really helpful because it can be professional and not put any emotion into it. So that's definitely, it can help you with a lot of things. So please do not hesitate to reach out. And then if you're not already following Light the Way on social media, I definitely recommend it. And that's where Tates and Shayna keep everyone updated on future events, because I know that you have some webinars planned that are going to be really helpful. All right. Does anyone have any other questions that we want to talk about before we get out of here? And again, I did paste in the info@lightthewaymissing.com chat in the chat. So please feel free to reach out. Shayna, Tate, and Raul, do you have anything else you want to add?
I'll say something real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
As an advocate, prior to volunteering with Light the Way, I was almost starving for these types of resources, this forum for advice. So having it now is so gratifying for me, because now I'm able to be more effective on behalf of the families that I'm working for. And it makes me feel like I'm contributing at a more effective level. So this, if I wasn't even volunteering with Light the Way, I would be here in the audience writing a million things down that I already did, and I have the document that you wrote. So I'm still writing it anyway because it's important. So I just want to say thank you, Haley, for putting this all together, and for Tates and Shayna for creating this forum. You know, I'd love to see a whole Light the Way library of webinars, because this is so resourceful for everyone, and the value can't be underscored enough.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much for
Raul.
that, Raul. That was so kind. Thank you. To everyone here, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope that the information was helpful and you find it useful. And once again, reach out if you have any questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you.